explosions shook the Lebanese capital of Beirut. So far, 10 dead and hundreds of injured has been reported. New acts of police repression in the city of La Paz and Santa Cruz were reported. The tensions grow in this second day of protest. On Tuesday, Indian troops imposed a curfew in Kashmir, blocking main roads. From the headquarters of Telesur English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South, I'm Laura Palmero. Two major explosions shook the Lebanese capital of Beirut, with eyewitness footage cooperating blasts and showing the devastation wreaked in the surrounding area. The blasts have been blamed on fireworkers' accident. So far, 10 dead and hundreds of injured has been reported. The first blast struck the city's port shortly after 6 p.m. local time on Tuesday. Within minutes, report flew and another more devastating explosions. Video footage captured shockwaves traveling buildings kilometers away as a massive mushroom cloud of dust and debris was shot into the sky. Health Minister Hamad Hassan told local media that a ship carrying fireworks exploded in the port. Video footage lends weight to his explanation as it shows a small explosion followed by the crackling of fireworks before a second and massively destructive blast. Local media informed that half of the city was affected as the explosion destroyed at least 7 kilometers around the epicenter. In Bolivia, tensions grow a second day of strike. In different regions, mobilizations and roadblocks are being reported this Tuesday, as well as new acts of police repression in ongoing protests to demand the holding of general elections in September. The camp was set up on the proximities of the Supreme Electoral Court in La Paz, where several young people began a hunger strike to call for elections on the established date, September 6. The protest was abruptly dismantled by police forces, and several demonstrators were arrested. Likewise, in the town of Santa Rosa de la Roca, one of the many blockades set up in the national was violently repressed by security forces. Some local media reported that some of the protesters were wounded. On Tuesday, Argentina's Ministry of Economy announced that it had reached an agreement with three major creditors over the restructuring of a $66 billion debt. Also, the Argentina President Alberto Fernandez tweeted about the debt and the solution amidst COVID-19 pandemic. Argentina's formal offer submitted to the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission contemplates the payment of $53 for every $100 of debt, improving payment terms. The Argentinian government said that the agreement will allow members of the creditor groups and other bondholders to support Argentina's debt restructuring proposal and grant the South American nation significant debt relief. Also, President Fernandez affirmed through his Twitter account that the country solves an impossible debt in the worst economic crisis even amidst the COVID-19 pandemic. In Chile, the Council of the National Institute of Human Rights joined the list of organizations that rejected acts of violence by armed civilian groups against the Mapuche people in the southern Araucania region. The institute said that the eviction of Mapuche community members by civilian groups is a serious problem since it is responsibility of the authorities to grant their rights. The institute urged the corresponding authorities to investigate the facts of identifying those responsible. This weekend, a group of civilians violated the curfew and attacked Mapuche community members who were occupying public buildings to protest and support the shaman leader Celestino Córdoba and another political prisoners who have been on a hunger strike for more than 90 days. The Colombian Supreme Court of Justice has opened a case against former President Álvaro Uribe Vélez regarding an alleged witness tampering. A series of public statements made by the country's President Iván Duque, the Vice President Marta Lucía Ramírez, and the leadership of the Democratic Center Party have triggered numerous reactions to what political, legal, and social sectors consider as an aggressive campaign to intimidate and pressure judges while trying to confuse public opinion. Social organizations demand respect for the court and the decisions. They also warn about the wave of violence that will start in the event of another imprisonment against the former president. After a month of general protest, employees of the Haitian Electricity Group started a strike that is causing a drastic impact on the service supply. According to local sources, the return to work is a result of an agreement reached between the strikers and the current Director General of the Electric Governmental Group, Michael Presume. On July, after the naming of Presume as head of the company, protesters started the protest and accused the newly appointed official for trying to privatize the company. They also claimed that he was involved in misappropriato public funds. Estimations indicated that only 30% of the population of the Caribbean nation has electrical service. In several Haitian communities, the electricity lasts for about 4 hours each day, and the rest is generated by local initiatives. According to the latest report from Johns Hopkins University, the regions of Latin America and the Caribbean have confirmed to date over 5 million COVID-19 cases. The U.S. university reported that 5,002,625 people have tested positive for COVID-19. The region death toll stands at 202,000. Brazil is the most affected region and more than 2,750,000 COVID-19 cases and nearly 95 deaths. Mexico is the second most affected with over 443,000 infections and more than 48,000 fatalities. These two nations are followed by Peru, Chile, and Colombia as the most affected countries in Latin America and the Caribbean. Dominican Republic's Ministry of Public Health recorded on Monday 73,117 COVID-19 cases and 1,183 deaths. According to the Health Minister Rafael Sanchez, from this total is affected people, 6,260 are isolated in hospitals. On the other hand, there have been almost 200,000 people tested negative for carrying the novel coronavirus, and there are already more than 38,000 recoveries from COVID-19. Deaths multiplied by 5 in the last 24 hours. The COVID-19 patients were mainly registered in the Distrito Nacional, Santo Domingo, and Santiago. The damage caused during the hurricane season in Central America and the Caribbean will make children and their families more vulnerable in the midst of the pandemic, and this is a current concern for the United Nations. According to a report by the United Nations Children's Fund, more than 70 million children in that geography area are directly or indirectly affected by the health crisis following COVID-19, and the more active phase of the hurricane season threatens to aggravate the situation. Displacement, damage to the infrastructures, and disruption of services due to the storms, particularly in coastal areas, could make children and families more vulnerable to disease and its impacts. Furthermore, the pandemic also affects the preparedness of countries in the region to respond to such disasters. I will be right back after this short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. The Spanish Ministry of Health reported 1,178 new COVID-19 cases in the last 24 hours, adding to the more than 8,000 cases reported over the weekend. The European Union reported 34 deaths in the last 7 days. The autonomous community of Aragon shows the worst situation with 237 new cases daily, followed by Madrid and Catalonia, with 67 and 54 new COVID-19 cases respectively. According to the country's health authorities, there are currently over 560 active outbreaks of the novel coronavirus. Tropical storm Isaias hit the American state of Virginia with strong winds and heavy rain on Tuesday after making landfall as a hurricane near Ocean Isle Beach in North Carolina. The hurricane center crossed over the coast just after 11 p.m. on Monday with sustained winds of 84 miles per hour, and they decreased to 72 miles per hour by early Tuesday. Forecasters warn that tornadoes are possible. They are also alerted that rainfall will remain a major concern and trees could fall, causing power cuts as Isaias moves north along the east coastline and the United States. About 80 miles north of the Ocean Isle Beach, about 30 people were displaced due to a fire at the condominium complex in Surf City. News outlets reported it is not clear if the fires were connected to the storm. No injuries have been reported so far. Protests in Portland in the western state of Oregon were declared as unlawful assembly on Monday night as protesters confronted the state troops. Officers could be seen taking at least one handcuffed person into custody, and a gas to look like tear gas erupted shortly after midnight. Demonstrations had been notably smaller and more peaceful for the past few nights, as state forces replaced federal officers deployed to Portland by U.S. President Donald Trump. And on Tuesday, China accused the United States of outright bullying over popular video app TikTok after President Donald Trump ramped up pressure for the app to be sold to the U.S. company.
For some time now, the U.S., without providing any evidence, has been using an abused concept of national security, has been abusing its state power, and has been unjustifiably suppressing certain non-U.S. companies. This goes against the principles of the market economy and the WTO's principles of openness, transparency, and non-discrimination. It's outright bullying. China is firmly opposed to this.
The Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson also made reference to EU statements on Hong Kong elections.
I want to stress that Hong Kong is a special administrative region of China. The election of the Legislative Council of the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region is a local election in China and is purely an internal matter of Hong Kong. No foreign government, organization, or individual has the right or any reason to intervene.
Millions of people in the Philippines were ordered to stay home Tuesday as global coronavirus infections kept soaring, with the World Health Organization's warning against relying on a silver bullet vaccine to end the pandemic. Philippines have reimposed economically painful restrictions on travel and business. More than 27 million people on the main island of Luzon, including the capital Manila, went back into a partial lockdown for weeks from Tuesday. People have been told to stay home unless they need to go out to buy essential goods, for exercise, or for work. Many found themselves stranded in Manila and unable to get back to their hometowns after public transport and domestic flights were halted due to the quarantine measures.
Our families in the province are already worried because we already lost our jobs and now we are stranded here at the airport. So we will just stay here inside until our flight resumes. We will definitely experience hunger in the next few days here. I could probably endure the hunger, but not for too long, and I'm worried about the children, and we also have a pregnant woman with us.
Spain's former king Juan Carlos has gone to the Dominican Republic after leaving this home country and the midst of a corruption scandal, according to Spanish newspapers' reports. The Spanish royal palace announced yesterday that Juan Carlos, who abdicated in 2014 over a previous scandal, was leaving the country to allow his son Felipe to act as king without his father's personal affairs affecting his reign. Spanish newspapers report that Juan Carlos, who is keeping the title of King Emeritus, left the royal palace on Sunday before going to Portugal by car and flying from there to Dominican Republic. However, his lawyer said that the former king would remain at the disposal of the prosecutor's office. Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sánchez said he and the government show absolute respect for the decision taken by the royal household concerning the exile of former King Juan Carlos. The former king has reportedly fled to the Dominican Republic, but Sánchez says it is not to the government to make the information known.
En primer lugar, el gobierno y Y yo como presidente
First of all, the government and I as president express our absolute respect for the decision taken by the royal household. We express this absolute respect insofar as what is behind the decision taken by the royal household, which is to distance itself from allegedly questionable and reprehensible behavior by a member of the royal household. Institutions aren't judged, people are. In this case, Don Juan Carlos has clearly said that he is at the disposal of justice if necessary, like any other Spaniard.
And we have more stories coming up after this final break, so stay with us.
Felicitaciones a Telesur en su 15º aniversario. Qué genial iniciativa del comandante Hugo Chávez Frías, que entendió perfectamente que una de las principales batallas es la batalla por la información. Los medios hegemónicos son el principal instrumento de las élites latinoamericanas para mantener el status quo, para confundirnos, para imponer la cultura hegemónica. América Latina no tendrá verdadera democracia mientras no resuelva la cuestión mediática. Una prensa honesta, transparente, en función del bien común. Parte de esa solución es Telesur, una esperanza. Adelante y felicitaciones. Hasta la victoria siempre.
Welcome back to From the South. These are breaking news from Colombia. On Tuesday, the Colombia Supreme Court has ordered house arrest against former President Álvaro Uribe Vélez. More than 7,000 testimonies were analyzed in the process, in what is one of the most important judicial processes in recent years in the South American nation. The decision was notified immediately and comes into effect this Tuesday. Thousands of Indian troops imposed a curfew in the Indian-ruled Kashmir on Tuesday with a razor wire and steel barricades blocking main roads in anticipation of August 5, the first anniversary of the day of the government stripped of the region of autonomy. Prime Minister Narendra Modi imposed New Delhi's rule last August 5, promising peace and prosperity after 3 decades of violence that have seen tens of thousands of people killed in an anti-India uprising. Officials announced a 2-day full curfew on Monday, claiming that intelligence reports indicate looming protests in the Muslim-majority region of 7 million people. Locals have called for the anniversary to be marked as the Black Day. Police vehicles patrolled the main city Spanigar after dark on Monday and again on Tuesday morning, with officers using megaphones to order residents to remain indoors. Meanwhile, India's health ministry announced on Monday that the country's COVID-19 cases have surpassed 1.8 million in the last 24 hours. The authorities reported almost 53,000 new cases. Meanwhile, 771 people with COVID-19 died during the past 24 hours, taking the death toll to 38,000 victims. India is focusing on testing more people. India has done more than 20 million COVID-19 tests till Sunday. The Asian country went into lockdown on March, the biggest quarantine in the world, restricting 1.3 billion people. This Tuesday, Iran confirmed over 2,700 new COVID-19 infections. This is the highest number in only 1 day for more than a month. As a precautionary measure, the health ministry called for the mandatory use of masks. Death and infections from the novel coronavirus have increased in the Islamic Republic. This has prompted Iran to make wearing masks mandatory in enclosed spaces and reimpose restrictions that were lifted gradually since April to reopen the economy. Despite the rule, people without masks can still be seen inside the capital shops and banks, and state television often criticizes them for doing so. The number is the highest since June 5, when the ministry reported 2,886 infections in 1 day. Lebanon suspends nationwide lockdown for 2 days, with restaurants and cafes allowed to reopen at 50% capacity. New nationwide lockdown measures were announced last week following a rise in cases after previous restrictions were gradually lifted. Lebanon had gradually lifted lockdown measures starting in May. In an early July, it opened the Beirut airport to commercial flights after a closure of more than 3 months. But new cases have increased since restaurants, bars, clubs and resorts reopened. The pandemic stroke has Lebanon as already mired in its worst economic crisis in decades, prompting fears that the country's fragile health system could collapse. This has dealt a heavy blow to a country where more than 45% of the population lives below the poverty line and more than a third of the workforce are unemployed. In the Democratic Republic of the Congo, the rise of the dollar against the Congolese franc is causing prices to soar, hitting consumers' purchasing power as well as business profit margins.
The central bank set this rate, which caused the dollar to fall instantly.
The dollar was at 20,000 Congolese francs, then suddenly dropped to 60,000 Congolese francs. I don't know whether to be satisfied with that or not. It's beyond us. Quite frankly, the government should have first considered lowering the price of products on the market instead of lowering the dollar directly. That is what concerns us right now.
The pandemic has seriously affected the economies of countries that have trade relations with the Democratic Republic of the Congo. A 40% reduction in exports, a 30% reduction in imports, the result is a deficit in our trade balance. In other words, our country earns less foreign currency than it did before the pandemic.
Zimbabwe President Emerson Mnangagwa on Tuesday warned the would flush out. Opponents and strike groups reported dozens of activists had been arrested in a crackdown on dissent.
My administration has faced many hurdles and attacks since its inauguration. These included the divisive politics of some opposition elements, the illegal economic sanctions, cyclones, droughts, and more recently, the deadly COVID-19 pandemic. All this was meant to undermine our projected economic growth and stability. As a result, we have had to constantly recalibrate our compass to ensure that we remain on course and that the standard of life of the majority of our society gets better and better. We will overcome attempts at destabilization of our society by a few rogue Zimbabweans acting in league with foreign detractors. The bad apples that have attempted to divide our people and to weaken our systems will be flushed out.
Lagos Key's third mainland bridge is partially closed for renovation for a 6-month period, worsening traffic in Nigeria's economic capital. The third mainland is Africa's second largest bridge that goes 12 kilometers along Lagos Lagoon to link Lagos Island, the economic heart of the city, with the mainland where most people live. Its partial closure has had serious impact on the economy, with one economist saying that productivity loss due to traffic congestion comes to such as $383 million.
Because of the inconvenience of the closure of the bridge, and because of the traffic, because the drivers feel they'll be in traffic for a while, longer than the usual time they're supposed to be in traffic, or they're supposed to apply that route.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. You can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And join us on social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Laura Palmero. Thank you for watching.
Telesur, desde nuestra cuarentena aquí en nuestro hogar, siempre con Chávez, nuestras felicitaciones. 15 años defendiendo la verdad de América Latina y del Caribe, de los pueblos del sur, 15 años ganando la batalla comunicacional, la batalla simbólica, la batalla por la verdad. Felicidades Telesur, todo nuestro amor y admiración. No exagero cuando digo que Telesur es la mejor televisora mundial en materia de noticias, la mejor en toda la línea de la calidad. Felicidades Telesur, una obra fundada por nuestro comandante infinito Hugo Chávez, por el comandante Fidel Castro Ruz. Es la obra de ellos, su milagro, que sigue vivo.
Felicitaciones Telesur, felicitaciones a todo el personal, a todos los periodistas, a todo el personal de Telesur por esa extraordinaria labor que día a día hacen de llevar la noticia veraz y oportuna a hogares en muchas partes del mundo. Felicitaciones.
Felicidades. 15 años.
Acompañamos a los pueblos que resisten en cada una de sus luchas.
Somos esa ventana que se abre para visibilizarlos entre fronteras.